welcome back. I'm Mike Quincy.
I'm John Lincove.
And I'm Mike Monticello.
So in today's Talking Cars, we are going to talk about the 2026 Dodge Charger. This is a blast from the past. The Mopar spirit is still kicking. I mean, this car, you got to admit, it is visually striking, but I suppose you either like it or you don't. But it's no mistaking that this thing has a presence. The big news is the Charger comes as a very lengthy four-door hatchback, as well as a two-door model, which is not called the Challenger, by the way. Both electric and old-school internal combustion power are offered. We bought an all-wheel drive four-door RT model, which comes with a twin-turbo 420 horsepower 3-liter straight 6-cylinder engine hooked up to an 8-speed automatic transmission. We also added the Blacktop package, which includes a whole bunch of features that I'm not going to list right now, another few odds and ends, and the $1,995 destination charge. Our car came to $57,700. So, Mr. Monticello, let's start with you, and let's talk about what you like about the new Charger.
Well, first of all, how did you not mention one of the options, the ludicrous paint? I mean, how do you talk about options and not mention that most hilarious one?
Exactly. I do give the Chrysler Corporation credit for creative naming of their colors.
A lot of their money goes into the market.
You know, go mango and stuff like that. But yes, ludicrous was very creative.
Yeah, but I can't,
So you like the color, okay?
I do like the color, and I think the name's hilarious. Why not have some fun with it, right? But kind of what you already touched on, the presence and that kind of thing. I mean, you remember, and you know this because you worked at Automobile Magazine, but when that magazine was founded in the mid-'80s, it was founded on a mantra of no boring cars,
Correct.
Right? And what we're seeing a lot these days are a lot of boring cars, right? And this is not boring. And honestly, that's one of the things I like best about it, is that it's not a great car overall, and we're going to get into a lot of the things that are, some things that are kind of not great about it, but it's not boring to drive. It's not boring to look at, just the way it has kind of a fairly loud, for the times, startup, cold startup. It announces that it's there, and it's got some presence. It's got the bulging hood. It's got the sinister headlights. There's just a look about it, and just even the way it drives. And we're going to get into all that. But it's got some power. Not unbelievable power, but it's got some power. You really get into it. It makes some noise. And I really like that it's not boring.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the website, because I was checking out options and what's available and what's not, and it's just filled with power slides. And it's like, this is the car for a Michael Bay movie, okay? It's like, it doesn't make sense. It's like Armageddon, 2 space shuttles taking off next to each other. Totally doesn't make sense. Gravity on an asteroid, sure. This car doesn't make sense, but it's entertaining. And it's just like a Michael Bay movie.
But I mean, cars today are, Mike, you kind of touched on this. They're safer than they've ever been. They're more fuel efficient than they've ever been. They run cleaner than they've ever been. There's certainly, cars are getting bigger. They're not getting smaller. But maybe the automotive world needs some silly cars that make no sense at all.
Absolutely.
I mean, it does. Look, what the automotive world needs versus what the buying public wants are two different things. Yes. But that means if the automotive world will be filled with brown station wagons and, with V8 engines, and it needs it, but most people are just like, no, I really want my experience to be inside the car, thanks. I mean, look at the Audi Q9 that was introduced. The Vorsprung durch Technik is all about the in-car experience, not the driving.
Right.
The world has changed.
I worked with an editor over 20 years ago in our Yonkers office who was so frustrated with cars and auto tests enthusiasm for it. She actually just said, well, everyone should just buy a Camry and be done with it. And so I'm glad that the world isn't just Camrys.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
it's true.
Who knows how many they're going to sell, and they obviously will likely appeal to a fairly small clientele,
Sure.
not huge numbers, I would guess these days, but we'll see. I mean, there are some things that you are going to have to put up with. Again, we'll talk about that in our not likes, but there's also some real positives to this car. I mean, just take the ride. The ride is quite comfortable. I feel like we're seeing so many vehicles these days come through the Auto Test Center that have pretty darn stiff rides, including luxury cars and
Enormous
SUVs.
wheels and tires.
And that has a lot to do with it. When you start putting 22-inch wheels and very low aspect ratio on the tires, you're asking to have a stiff ride. In this car, I mean, it soaks up most bumps that you throw at it pretty easily.
I mean, these are 19s. These are the small
Wheels. These are actually 20s.
These are 20s?
Because of the Blacktop package. Yeah,
Right,
I think
right,
it comes
sorry.
with 18s. These are 20s. 255, 45 tires.
Okay.
But it actually does pretty darn well. I mean, to the point that most of the time you're not thinking about what is the suspension doing, what are the what size wheels and tires, because that's something. As soon as you start driving a test car out of here and you start hitting some of the bumps, one of the first things I think about is, oh crap, what size, how large are these wheels that's screwing up the suspension and the ride. And this thing actually, I thought it did pretty darn well.
Yeah, it's a cruiser.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of my notes is like, you want to go take I-75 from Fort Lauderdale all the way up to like Valdosta, Georgia. Perfect car for it. You want to continue on to the tail of the dragon? Not really the best vehicle. Okay, that's not where you're going to have fun with that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you can lock in and just go. Now, depending how much time you put your foot into it, you may be at the gas station often. But yeah, it harkens back to the cars of the 60s and of the 70s in a sense. So big, slightly ungainly maybe if it gets really technical, but they just kind of waft down the road.
And it's quiet too, other than the engine and exhaust.
Yeah.
So
right?
when you said the big bark at startup, it made me think of the Ford Mustang GT, which has a setting where you can do a quiet startup, because allegedly when they were developing the current Mustang, one of the engineers or product planner guys their neighbors complained that how loud it was when they started up. It's like, okay, maybe we can look into that. Now, I'm not suggesting that the new Charger is quite as loud as the Mustang, but it's just interesting that you brought it up, that initial startup.
I brought it up more than anything because we do drive a lot of EVs these days, and of course there's no sound with those. But
or awful fake sounds.
Or awful fake sounds for or the pedestrian warning sound, obviously. But I did see some notes in the logbook where people thought it was obnoxious. I don't think it's obnoxious at all. I think
agree.
it is a little bit loud.
I agree.
But I think it's totally fitting the character of the car. I don't think it's going to wake up your neighbors. And maybe they should be getting up and going to work anyway.
I startled some people at in a parking lot, remote starting it from inside. I remote started, opened the door, and as it kicked in, I could see a person, what's that?
Either liking it or being offended by it.
I think it was just more sudden, because it's very sudden, especially if you're walking by a car, you don't see someone's foot on the pedal, you don't see someone get in it, you're walking up to it. But yeah, they definitely jerked when that kicked in, because it does. It kicks in like it's getting onto full song.
So John, speaking of kicking in, when you're driving it and say you're merging on the highway, what did you think of the power delivery, the response, the noise?
It was fine. I mean, I didn't. Well, no, I'm not trying to paint it in a bad light. Like
we're not getting into the dislikes. We're still in the likes.
Plenty of power. I knew where the wheels were pointed. The steering wasn't disconnected feeling. Now, I don't know if people were getting out of my way because it looks kind of like a Stady car, because some guys do in this area run Dodges. I mean, it's a different grille than many of them, but a lot of people got in my way. It's blue. Maybe they're thinking it's a police. I don't know this. It wasn't like I was ripping down on 120, blinking my lights at them.
Right.
But plenty of people just got out of the way. It gets up to its cruising again very well, but it wasn't, for me, engaging. Except for the sound, and the sound was fine. I didn't find myself putting it in and out of eco or sport to lessen it. It just was kind of background noise, and it was enjoyable background noise. For what it was.
I think what he's trying to say is, and he's beating around the bush, is that you'd think, knowing that it has 420 horsepower, you'd think it'd feel a little faster. It's fine. I don't know if that's where you're going, but for me, that's what I felt, is that I thought it would feel, when I really floor it and get into it, I thought and it comes on song, it's got twin turbos, right? I thought it would feel a little quicker than it is, but it's more than enough. I mean, in terms of, you can feel comfortable that if you want to get around a car in a 2-lane passing zone or whatever, you're going to be able to. I thought that, but keep in mind, it's the reason why I think it doesn't feel all that fast is it's almost 5,000 pounds.
Well, yeah.
Right. So it's really heavy. It's 4,747 pounds is our test car. So it's really heavy. So, but I'd say it's good. It's not, I wouldn't call the acceleration exhilarating, but I think there's some real positives to this engine in terms of, and the transmission. There are some real faults.
We'll get into.
But just that it's pretty responsive. Like if you floor it, there is a little delay before it really does anything. Then it gives a quick downshift. Power comes on pretty much immediately. The shifts are very smooth and quick at full throttle, not always at other times. And also when you do things like, and I will say part of the reason why maybe it feels exciting is that the engine's making a lot of racket when you're doing those kinds of things.
But it was, so first of all, I had it in the rain. It's like I had it overnight, 2 rainy days. So I'm
That's
not
too bad.
putting it in the full song. I'm not, I'm not going to floor it. I don't want to find out how good the all-wheel drive is or the tires.
Stability control.
Yeah, I just, that we could do it on track. But the sound is equal to the performance. It's not one of these mostly EVs, but even cars, you're like, well, it sounds good, but I really don't feel like I'm going anywhere. So it's in line with the performance, I think.
Okay.
But there is a little bit, like you said, there is a little bit of a delay. It's really good when it's rolling.
Yeah.
I think from a stop, it's one thing. When you're rolling, and then to your question, from the on-ramp to the highway, it's instantaneous. And that I found, albeit in the rain.
Okay, and so Monty's talked about some of the stuff that he liked. So John, let's look at some of the points on your list.
Yes. Oh, again, we talked about comfortable ride, comfortable seats too. I found the seats, they worked for me.
Interesting,
supportive. I didn't have any issues with shoulder area, lower back, nothing like that. Again, into that whole cruising world. I'm torn on the climate controls, because they're accessible. They're a touch sensitive bar that Chrysler Stellantis is moving to, and they're really accessible. They're not in a screen. They're not somewhere you have to swipe and go to, but they're not great. And it's kind of like, oh, fine. At least they put them there and they put them within reach, but it's not really the best execution.
And the tactile thing, it sounds like tap. You can almost hear it. The shelf.
Yeah, but you can see the thing moving. So that's why
you want the tactile though, because you want to know that it did what you asked it to do.
Yeah.
So I don't mind the tactile sensation. I like that.
Yeah.
But what is weird is, I think what you're talking about is that no matter any of the buttons you press, the whole bar moves.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just feels cheap and looks cheap when that happens.
It's a little unnerving because
right?
I was like, is this falling apart? Is it supposed to do this?
Yeah, I mean,
it's weird.
We could bring it to the dislike. I didn't want to get into make it into the dislikes. That's why I'm torn.
I actually have that at kind of a like.
Yeah,
to be honest with you, because all the stuff that I care about, for the most part, as far as climate, is there.
Right.
Temperature, always there. Airflow mode, always there. Fan speed is always there.
Yep.
So even though it's kind of not the best, most user-friendly, because it is all on one panel and you're not actually pressing a physical button that goes in.
Responds, yeah.
The whole panel moves. At least most of the things that I think people use most of the time with climate control is there and accessible.
Right.
So that is a positive.
It's unconventional, but it's still effective.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's go back to the seats though, because you seemed surprised when he said he liked it.
I thought that. This kind of gets into my dislikes.
Oh, okay,
I don't want to jump the gun.
Save that. Then. I'm on Team Linkove.
Okay.
Because we were
Which is
divided.
Which is rare. The logbooks.
The logbooks divided on the front seats, and I thought they were pretty comfortable and supportive. Well, I think there's actually quite good bolstering on the seat back in particular. Like if I move over slightly, the bolster's right there. Move over that way, the bolster's right there. The bottom cushion could use a little more bolstering, but I just tilted the leading edge of the bottom cushion up, and then I was fine. And also the fact that it's cloth. Now you can argue whether a $57,000 car should have cloth or not. I personally love cloth because it's because it's grippy and it's not super hot in the summer. It's not super cold in the winter. So I think there's some real positives. So, and I just thought also that just the padding of the bottom cushion and seat back were pretty good. The only issue I had is that I thought it just had a little bit too much built-in lumbar support, but we can talk about the rest of the.
Yeah, I mean the lumbar worked for me, and it has a pocket. When you're writing, you often talk about the seat, the pocket that you sit in, and it formed a nice one for me without sinking in and feeling like I was at the adult table, as a child,
or without being so wide and flat that
it
doesn't hold you in place through corners.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
What was going through my mind though, as we were talking about the climate system, were other controls, and I don't think that. at Stellantis. Can I say Stellantis or can I just say Chrysler? I mean, you guys know what we mean.
We know who
we
you
know.
Stellantis.
the third of the big three.
What we used
Whatever.
to call Chrysler now is Stellantis.
So they have had a long history of audio controls behind the steering wheel. And I don't think they get enough credit for this because I love them. I love the fact that most of the time we're at 9 and 3, and on the right side you can adjust the volume. On the left side you can go to the next track or the next preset or something like that, or change formats. And it is so awesome. It's right there, and you don't have to deal with anything else as the driver. So I just wanted to put a little check mark in the way to go guys column for those.
It's like they found what worked and they kept it instead of reinventing it just for the sake.
Exactly. Yeah. And occasionally you see some car companies like GM did some of the things, but then I think the last GMC Terrain that we tested, the paddle shifters were right next to them. And I remember not being able to figure out, am I on the volume or on the upshift paddle, something like that.
The EV ones have the brake button too.
Right. But so I mean, give Dodge credit for sticking with this design, and if you drive that brand's vehicles, you'll immediately be comfortable with it.
It's at home.
Very easy to use.
Yeah.
Right.
Once you understand, once you memorize which is which.
Exactly.
I think the final thing, and probably you may agree, you may not, hatchback design. It certainly is different in the muscle car world like that. A lot of it's traditional trunk, the last Charger, big trunk and such. It gives it versatility. I don't know if it's the most versatile hatchback out there, just in the sense of how high the floor is. But yeah, it's different. You know what? Why not? Instead of having design compromised by the rear package shelf and the seat backs, and then you're sticking stuff that goes far in. You've got a nice hatchback you could reach in no matter what. So give it a plus for that as well.
So more likes, and I'm really on board with a lot of what you guys said. The one thing I will add is I'm just glad that it's a sedan. So we
as opposed to an SUV.
Well, yeah, because we drive so many SUVs these days, and I was a little disappointed when Toyota dropped the Avalon and brought out the Crown, and they made the styling of the Crown kind of look SUV-ish or big and off and more ground clearance and stuff like that. And the simplicity of the Avalon was one of the things that I liked about it so much. It had the low cowl, it had great visibility, and the new one really, the Crown and the Crown Signia really doesn't. So hey, yay for Dodge. You stuck with a sedan or a sedan-like vehicle. So good on you for that.
Yeah.
All right. So this is where maybe it gets a little spicier. And let's go to the to the dislikes column, because I got a few extra of these than on the like side. Who wants to? John, why don't you start, John?
So before I get to the car, I want to say that I'm done with like the marketing hyperbole, and because according to Dodge, it's the world's most powerful all-wheel drive muscle car, and that's like saying we work with the world's tallest Mike Quincy, who's employed with Consumer Reports. It's a one of one. Like the Mustang is not all-wheel drive,
Right.
There's no other muscle car out there that's an all-wheel drive car. Like, so congratulations for the it's a participation award and the number one spot in out of one. But that aside, the rear seat's just too small as a sedan for two people, let alone three. Like it's just really snug. Hard to get in and out of, compromised headroom.
No headroom.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then, like I said, the rear hatch floor is really high. So, I mean, it's cool to have, but you're not really stacking a lot of stuff there as the glass comes down.
Yeah, the rear seat is just strange. I mean, like you can't imagine that it would be that
for such a big car
and uncomfortable.
It's a big car.
There's just weird connection between this very raked back bottom cushion, which usually you would do to help with under leg support, but then also what feels like an oddly high floor. So you're in this kind of strange knee bend for an adult that you wouldn't expect, right?
And this is guessing on it because of the EV development.
That's my guess.
The battery.
So remember how it used to be that you'd take a gas platform and turn it into an EV, and there'd be some compromises. Well, turns out if you go the other way and do an EV platform and then turn it into gas, and there's compromises, and also not helping this situation. Situation that leads to feel uncomfortable is besides this, the bottom cushion raked, high floor, but also hardly any space for your feet underneath the
feet
front
and toe
seats, especially like for someone like me, I sit with the driver's seat at its lowest position. And so you just end up, and then hardly like my head is just about into the roof, not quite there. It's just weird. And then even the like, the outboard elbow rest, the armrest, my outer elbow like knocks into this piece of plastic that's on the door panel there. You know, that weird
the patterny thing
thing on the, it bumps into, and they actually put a little plastic panel there for my elbow to bump into instead of bumping into the ridge stuff.
It's like a guide.
It's the Monticello panel.
So you don't cut
they
yourself.
talked about it in development.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, really weird for the rear seat to be this uncomfortable in such a big car.
I mean, on the topic you brought up, the fit and finish and the trim is interesting because
Hit and miss.
Like Alex and Isaac noted, there's a weird plastic piece on the door where two pieces of trim meet, but they meet with this divider as if they couldn't get it to line up perfectly, so they'll put a plastic block in there so that your eye doesn't see that the two pieces don't line up properly. Maybe it's just a design thing, but it gives the look of like, well, I couldn't get it right, so we'll just tape over it. The stuff on the door that it's visually arresting. Your eye is drawn to it,
But you touch it.
well, and then the next thing that is a human nature is you're like, well, okay, I'm gonna touch it, and you're just like, oh, it doesn't have the tactile sensation that you expect from
Right.
something that looks so nice.
It's plasticky, a little bit rough, and just
Thin.
feels terrible.
And
it feels terrible when you rub your hands across
And
it.
it's hollow.
Yeah.
It's more, flash than substance.
I mean, it's not an area where you're like, oh, I'm driving around,
Right, right,
holding
right.
it.
But like you said, it's human
but you
nature
wanna go
to touch
right.
things, right? We
Right.
touch things.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I think it's one of those cabins that you get into it and you're like, oh, it's not too bad, actually. I mean, when you look at it, like there's this, red stitching, a lot of red and white stitching. At least they didn't use glossy black trim on the center console. If you're going to
Audi
give them
stole it all.
right? Audi doesn't. There's none left for anyone else. And then I'm torn on the pistol grip shifter. From an ergonomic standpoint, I like it, and I think it looks cool. Like it actually works well with my hand. But I do know that a lot of people said in the logbook, just I guess it feels there's a flimsiness to that plastic, right? That people just thought felt out of place with the car, I guess, or
Yeah, and it engaged oddly. I found myself often like I tried to go to park, but I was in reverse. But it kind of like felt like it locked in, but it wasn't.
It's just an homage to the 1970s, sort of. So,
Oh, so it's as unreliable as in the 70s, as well as the look
You look
and
at a
feel.
manual
Yes.
transmission
Oh, yeah.
of a 70s a Cougar or Challenger, and it is that pistol thing.
Give me the Hearst
Exactly.
T-bar.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the fit and finish. It just things felt loose when you because it's visually arresting, but
Yeah.
then you start touching stuff and it's like, well, that kind of feels loose and that kind of feels loose, and Stellantis does not have a great reputation for reliability, and some of that can be squeaks and rattles in Consumer Reports reliability surveys. So it will be very interesting to me how this holds up over time. But continue.
Well, so let's get into the controls. The bar of buttons that sits below the vents.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so on the good side, they light up. But on the bad side, they're hidden under a ledge. And they're buttons that you would use, such as the turning off the auto stop start. They can be low because they're not commonly used controls. That's totally fine. Put the emergency flashers up high, put something that you're going to touch once down low. And having a physical button, again, kudos there. But they're hidden away and they're low and they're dark buttons recessed underneath a shelf. It's just a little weird why they're not just out. Just present them to the driver a little better.
Yeah, if you have sunglasses on, you almost have to take your sunglasses off to find them, right? And even though the emergency flashers is on its own, it's still kind of small and a little bit under a ledge. So it's just not that's something that you want to be able to press really quickly, find quickly and press quickly.
It's small potatoes, but it's attention to detail. It's that type of stuff, and you're just like, okay, doing it to be ergonomically better for the driver. Especially with everything in a screen nowadays, it's great to have buttons, but make them useful.
Where's the wireless charger?
For $57,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they trick you. They trick you. I couldn't even believe it. They trick you. They have these two great slots.
Yep.
Toward the front of the center console where you would put two different phones with a divider between them, and it's even it's grippy rubber base there, so they're not going to slide around. And for $57,000, you'd think you would get at least one wireless charger. And it's not even two.
It's probably with the power hatch button, which is in the RT Plus. So,
Yeah, so that's the other weird thing is, so it's great that it's a hatchback, but there's no button to open it on the driver's dash area or sometimes it's in near the driver's door pocket area. It's not even on the key fob, right? So you have to do it only from the rear of the car, which again is another oddity.
Can I jump on the hatchback thing just for a second?
Jump on it. Yeah. Jump in, actually.
So I drove it on a pretty cold day, and as you know, sometimes cold weather can affect a vehicle's structure. It might accentuate some squeaks and rattles, and it sounded like the Kia Stinger that we tested years ago, which also was a hatchback design, which always had squeaks in it. And I'm wondering, is that kind of is there some structural integrity issues with a big hatchback?
So were you hearing some rattling?
I was hearing
with the
squeaks
hatch?
and rattles from our Charger, and while the hatchback is kind of convenient for hauling stuff, one of the things that Jeff Bartlett pointed out was, I went to the grocery store and my groceries tipped over, and they all the stuff went closer to the back seat.
Yeah.
You can't really reach stuff because it is such a big cargo area. You might find something that moves that you can't actually get at.
Very
so the hatchback is good in some aspects, but also has a few negatives going with it too.
I mean, you'd find it with some SUVs in the sense, if a 3-row SUV, if you keep the second row down or something like that, but a lot of them will have a well, or a lot of them have a panel underneath that you could store stuff.
Okay.
And, as a grocery getter in the house, I do look for that, because the falling over groceries is, and on top of the eggs is a pain in the neck. So yeah, totally. Visibility with the hatchback as well.
Again, that's also one of the downsides of the hatchback.
So I mean, I found it's compromised. It's very high, kind of a high dash, angled windshield. You've got a hood scoop in the front. It's okay, but it's not great.
Right.
They're definitely you have a sedan. You're like, okay, a sedan could be a little better. You have a hatch. You have a big piece of glass in the back that's not too raked. It's not like a real steep. And yeah,
the styling probably took precedence over the functionality.
Well, yeah, if you look at how chopped the windows are, I mean, obviously, you've got some very thick windshield pillars, which we're seeing, obviously on a lot of cars. I'll give them credit. At least the base of the windshield pillar doesn't get crazy thick like on some vehicles, but it is a very thick windshield pillar. You have to look around. But then the front and rear side windows they're very much chopped, right? And especially the rear window really has a dramatic taper. So you're losing a lot of, outward views there. And then the rearmost pillars are super, super, super thick. The rear window actually is decent sized and usable, but there's some huge blind spots formed by the huge rear pillars. So
Definitely.
I mean, the world of backup camera standard now for a decade plus. And all the sensors, you're getting people now rely on that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if automakers think, okay, it gives them some leeway. Unfortunately, though, as we all know, backup cameras fail. They get recalled, the screen fails, and then you have a whole host of people who, and maybe it's not the easiest seat to turn around in. Maybe, whatever it is, a person's not, used to doing this type of thing. Now all of a sudden you don't have the visibility to back up. You don't have that ability. Especially with everyone who backs into parking spaces these days.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Maneuverability, we can probably get into that.
Yeah.
Mike, so other negative points of this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the big ones that you notice almost immediately is some rough shifts from the transmission. And I can't remember a car that it's especially the 1-2 upshift in parking lots. Like, when you just get going and, it wants to upshift and you're at hardly any throttle and it's almost always really rough, this 1-2 shift. Again, we're talking parking lot speeds, right? We're going through our gates here at the test track. That's hard to fathom that would happen. But, and I'll steal a logbook comment from you. You said hard to modulate at low speed. So besides this 1-2 rough 1-2 shift in very, very low speeds. Even just starting from a stop, I found it a little bit hard to modulate unless you're super, super gentle with the throttle. It actually takes off with a little bit of a lurch, right? Kind of an abrupt throttle delivery. And then you've got this, usually, not always, pretty rough 1-2, and then pretty noticeable 2-3 upshifts. So just as you're getting going, you're like, man, this car's kind of feels a little bit crude.
Yeah.
That said, I feel it kind of fits the character of the car a little bit.
It wants you to go fast.
It's like someone really jamming the gears home. And so
don't go slow in it.
Here's what I would say. I will ding it score-wise when we actually get into the true testing of this car. It has to be dinged for that as far as its powertrain, right? But it didn't bother me that much, and it does fit the character of the car a little bit. And I will say that there are a fair amount of times once you get beyond the 2-3, the rest of those upshifts are usually pretty smooth. And some bumpy downshifts here and there, but there's just that very low speed stuff that just kind of you've got to be willing to put up with that. And I think a lot of people won't be expecting that.
I mean,
do you agree with that?
Well, I didn't like it with the rain, thinking like, is it going to break? What's going to happen? Starting
is it going to break loose?
Starting up and turning.
Yeah.
Again, pulling out into traffic and turning, like that was like it's like. I mean, I joked here. It's like a new driver with a clutch for the first time.
Yeah.
They're missing something. They're not engaging the clutch properly. And what's really funny is that we're looking at cars for my daughter who's getting her license soon, and one of the things was a 22 Volkswagen Taos. I know no one needs to tell me the Consumer Report stuff, but we're looking at different cars and I'm getting ideas for her, and it's got that bad. It's got the drivability issues. This reminded me of driving the Taos. The Taos reminded me of driving this Charger.
The low speed drivability.
The low speed drivability. Yeah. It was just like, oh my gosh, they're so similar.
So you have a teenage daughter who is always torturing you. Now you want to torture her back by putting her in a Taos.
Oh no. It's the new ones are better. But yeah,
I also think. I'm not bothered that the engine and exhaust are kind of loud. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit bothered that they don't sound great. I think leave it to Stellantis to somehow take an inline-six, which is known as one of the smoothest engines that's ever been created, and twin turbocharge it, okay, which also usually helps things as far as noise, as far as helping to muffle sound, to somehow make it gritty and rough sounding. Now, I will say on the bright side, you'd think you'd be feeling all kinds of vibrations coming through the steering wheel and the floorboards, and the pedal, but you're really not. But it just has this, as you're accelerating, this rather gritty sound to it that it's loud. I didn't mind it, but I don't think it sounds great. It should sound way better. They should have been able to tune it to make a more exhilarating, more invigorating note, I think.
Right. Yeah. Could be for the top package or something. It just doesn't. You just got to pay more for something.
It's hard to even say what it sounds like. It's just so kind of.
It just for me blended.
It's just loud.
Yeah, it blended into all the noise. So
it doesn't make you want to roll the windows down and turn the radio off and listen to it like some cars.
Yeah, I still want to. I still get into it a lot because I enjoy feeling the acceleration, and I don't mind making a little bit of noise on occasion. I just wish it was a much more invigorating sound. That's all.
So and before I forget, you guys were interested in my reaction to the seats.
Yeah.
So my notes are like they just felt too soft and flat to me. I appreciate the comments you made about the bolstering and stuff like that. And what I haven't done with this car yet is take it on an extensive road trip. So I'm going to just say for the experience that I've had so far, I wasn't thrilled with. I didn't hate the seats, but I wasn't thrilled with them. That kind of. That you guys covered most of the other negative aspects as far as I'm concerned, unless there's any other ones.
I mean, I found a few driving position quirks that I know. I think you also found that the left footrest, or what we in the industry call the dead pedal, it's kind of angled away from you, which is weird. And so I couldn't really use it quite as well as I wanted with my left foot. That was a little bit annoying and strange. A fair amount of center console intrusion with your right knee. That said, I think it's still plastic, but it's a weird, almost soft plastic. So it's not like it's really a layer of vinyl or leather, but there's something there that makes it a little more palatable than just plain plastic. But it is going to hem in your right knee for a lot of people. I didn't think either one of the armrests were great. I sit kind of closer, as I think you do as well, Quince. So with both hands on the steering wheel, I'm trying to do it here.
Yeah.
Both hands on, on the
Imagine the
lower part of the
steering
steering wheel
wheel.
going down the highway. My right elbow is almost always about to fall off because it's too far rearward, the center one.
It
and
has
low.
it has a cutout also for the button, for the latch. So
to open it.
exactly, like, instead of having it on the passenger side, because this is like an airplane. Passenger doesn't get the center. Okay,
That's true.
driver gets the center and the door. Passenger gets the door, and that's how the world operates. So the cutout is right where the driver would put their elbow. And then just getting to that, if you open up the center console and reach in, it has this cheesy claw latch right where you would reach through. That'll just scrape you up. And because the lid doesn't go back super far, you end up hitting it. It's little, again, just like the buttons.
No, but it's the little things that make the day-to-day living with a car somewhat annoying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And last thing on the driving position, the floor is kind of high, the seat's kind of low. Even with the adjustments, it felt like you're dealing with an EV platform which has a higher floor overall. So it's clear that this is, as you mentioned, it's anything but boring. You're going to drive this car. You're going to have an opinion about it. It's not going to be one of those things that you completely forget about the second you walk away from it. But the final question about the Charger is, like, it's clear that this is targeted to people like us. I don't know, what do we call mid-age guys, older guys.
I'm 37. I don't know what you're talking about.
You're 37. I'm 27. My God. No. So. Would you buy this car, or would you recommend it to a friend?
If you're starting with me, like I said, I don't mind driving it. Actually, I kind of enjoy driving it. Okay, so that's number one. But would I want to own it? No, I wouldn't want to put up with a lot of the quirks of the car on a regular basis. And I don't need a car that's that large, or want a car that is that large. I would tell a friend, like, look, you're going to enjoy, if you like driving, and which we really didn't talk about the handling, but I think that's because it's really blah. But
it's for cruising, not the tail of the dragon.
No,
It's not for
John touched on it.
We covered it in that
You're not
section.
going to go in the tail of dragon. Yeah.
There's certain aspects that are fun about this car, for sure. That it does have good acceleration. It does make some noise. And it's reasonably comfortable in terms of seats and ride. But you are going to put up with a lot of quirks and a lot of things that you'd have to put up with day to day. If it were me, I would, and of course, you never know with the reliability with Stellantis products. So that would be something that would I would give someone else pause. Think about that if you're buying this car. Also being a brand new car. So if it were me, if I wanted, say, a four-door, I would lean more towards something like a Subaru WRX, something that is considerably cheaper. You can get it with a manual gearbox. It handles way better. It's more space efficient, makes way more sense. It's a fair amount cheaper, which means then you would have enough money left over to put in some, maybe engine, exhaust, suspension mods, make it more your own. Not a wing, no. But I'm just saying that, and you would have way more fun driving that car than you would driving. At least I would have way more fun. Just the manual transmission alone would make it. But so that's what I would do. You'd have all this money left over to really make that car unique and make it even better than it is stock. And it's pretty darn good stock.
And kill the warranty, but by God.
You don't have to kill the warranty. You don't have to go crazy. You can do mods without going berserko.
You can buy STI approved mods.
Yeah,
from
you
Subaru.
just
there you go.
You got to be practical about it, but you can have a little fun, make a car unique. Yeah, I don't know what you do about the styling. That's another story.
that's
You're inside the
but
car.
it just
You're not
stops-
looking at
no,
it.
The point is, you would have way more fun driving that car if you like driving a manual and you like handling.
Yeah.
You'd have way more fun driving something like a WRX than you would this thing. This thing, like you said, is kind of for cruising.
John, would it be in your bucket list?
So I'm not a Mopar guy, so I don't have this long lost love. I don't look back and be like, oh, nostalgia or anything like that. And I didn't do that when the Challenger and the Charger, were resurrected. I think it's such a polarizing vehicle because it attracts Mopar people like flies to honey in that respect. I mean, people see it, they'd want to pull up. We've had logbook comments of like, oh, this guy in a Charger, this guy in a Challenger, and this, someone in a Dodge Avenger. Like, okay, but like,
A Dodge Avenger?
came up to see it, And you're like, so yeah, if someone came up and was just like, this is my bag, I can't dissuade someone who already has their heart set on that, but it's not for me.
Right.
It's not going to go in my garage.
Right.
I'm much more whether it's the vet or it's like more like Europhile type stuff. Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah, we all like silly cars, which is why we do this. And yeah, for me, I'm going to go for a Mustang GT or a Miata, because we've talked about Miatas to.
So you're comparing a Miata to a Charger?
I'm thinking that it's
two could fit in it.
I'm thinking that it's some ways it's kind of a silly car.
Okay.
Okay. That the whole premise of this Charger, it's kind of silly.
Yeah, I don't see people cross shopping the Charger.
I'm not
and
saying
the
you
Miata.
cross shopping.
But the WRX is like right there on
it's
their
a
shopping
four-door.
list.
At least it's a four-door.
I'm categorizing as just kind of a silly car, which I think this is.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to probably choose something else. Actually, I was a big fan of the previous edition Charger and Challenger. I like V8s and rear-wheel drive, and that's something that this vehicle is obviously lacking. So I'm just going to kind of put it out there that you guys are right. This will attract a crowd, and it definitely makes a statement. Is it right for you, for others? I'm not sure.
I think the last generation Chargers have a presence that this lacks.
Yes.
It just is. And because it was an EV initially, and it had EV, and EV is supposed to be different, and the other ones had this like just butch bravado, and
But
they still do when you see them on the
starting off,
road.
reintroducing the Charger as an EV probably just took the wind out of the sails of a lot of the previous buyers.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
but
guessing.
At least they're offering it with gas.
And now they've got to build it back. So just a reminder, this is our first impression of the new Charger. Check out Jeff Bartlett's first drive on consumerreports.org for more information. And that is going to bring us to our questions. We love your questions. Keep them coming. Text 30-second videos. Just go to talkingcars@icloud.com. That's talkingcars@icloud.com. And if we use your question on the podcast, we'll send you a t-shirt, some groovy auto test swag, or something like that. So we have a question from Kirk from Gilbert, Arizona, who writes, I've been subscribing to Consumer Reports since I was 18 years old. I am now 70 years young. I was recently driving through Pine, Arizona on my way to a camping location and stopped for gas. I noticed a gas pump stating racing fuel for $10.99 per gallon. I asked an employee who it was for and was told people use it on boats, motorcycles, chainsaws, ATVs, and vehicles, saying customers claim the engine runs cleaner and increases engine performance. Besides draining my wallet if I use this racing fuel, what would happen if I used it in my 2014 Subaru Crosstrek XV? Is it true that it increases the performance of the engine? So, in this day of increased gas prices, this is a pretty critical situation that people have to kind of decide how much they're going to want to spend putting fuel in their car. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you. What do you have for Kirk?
Well, so if the question is what would happen if he did this, the answer for Kirk is that very little would happen, and other than draining your wallet. That's basically what's going to happen. His Crosstrek was designed to run on 87 octane fuel, regular fuel by Subaru, and that's what it's designed to run on. Putting higher octane in your car does not immediately mean more power. There are reasons, and the reason why it's called racing fuel is there are reasons why an engine could take advantage of the higher octane, but it usually means you've tuned the engine specifically to run on that higher octane. You've probably changed some internal components of the engine. You've given it a higher compression ratio. Quite often, people turbocharging, you would be able to do that, but without a specialized tune, you're not going to hardly make much gain at all, and to the point that you'd probably not notice it by the seat of your pants, right? Now, that said, there are reasons to use expensive fuel. And for some of the ones that Kirk mentioned, or that the gas station person mentioned, and that would be to get ethanol-free fuel. And I will say I am one of those people that does that. I buy
Me too.
VP Racing fuel. Now, it's not for the race aspect of it. It's just VP Racing makes this ethanol-free fuel. It is 94 octane, but it has nothing to do with the octane. It's all about not having ethanol in that fuel, because ethanol really hurts the lifespan of the fuel. It degrades it faster, and when it's ethanol free, you can last like 2 or 3 years, they say, without it going bad. And when you have, so for instance, I use this ethanol-free fuel in my chainsaw, in my generator that I use at home, and as well as in my I have 2 dirt bikes that are carbureted. Ethanol really gums up the carburetors, and so you don't want that in there. So by using this, unfortunately, it is pretty expensive, but it's worth it if it means you don't have to keep doing carburetor rebuilds or the engine doesn't start when you need it to. And it's just knowing, so basically you're using it for items that the fuel, like take a chainsaw, they have tiny little gas tanks, right? And they're pretty fuel efficient. And so, but you say you make a gallon or 2 gallons of, you mix that chainsaw fuel because it's 2-stroke. You might have that for years. You don't want that going bad. So that's why a little bit of this VP Racing ethanol-free fuel goes a long way.
Yeah. John, you have experience or thoughts about, beyond premium fuel?
No, he covered it.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and just to that extent, so my track motorcycle, my sport bike, is designed to run on 91 octane. So of course, around here, we have 93 octane. But putting racing fuel in that bike is not going to do anything for me other than spending a whole lot of money. Like I would never put this ethanol-free fuel in it because I know that bike gets used pretty regularly. And then, I just use fuel stabilizer over the winter.
Right.
But I know that during the summer when I'm using it continuously, I'm not going to be pouring that crazy expensive ethanol-free fuel in there. But I'm not going to put racing fuel in it either because without having, some internal engine modifications done, I'm not going to be getting the benefit of that 100 octane fuel.
Yeah, you're not going to hurt it.
But I'd be wasting money.
You might as well buy premium at $6 a gallon and burn the other $4 a gallon just for the hell of it. And you actually will probably... You'll be fine.
Yeah,
right. So, I mean, Consumer Reports has talked, has published about this fairly extensively about how most consumers don't need to put premium fuel. We're not even talking about racing fuel. We're talking about premium fuel. And like you, I put premium fuel in my small engines, my chainsaw, my string trimmer, my lawnmower, stuff like that. But I would never even. There's nothing in my life that requires racing fuel, but I will put premium in the small stuff. But in people's day-to-day cars, and we've talked about this extensively, if the manufacturer does not say it is required, you're not really gaining anything just by using premium. So, and we're going to be talking about the price of fuel in future podcasts. So definitely stay tuned if you're curious about whether or not premium makes any difference for fuel economy or performance. And in most cases, we will just say, save your money.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up, if you're watching this on YouTube, we recently added a donate button to our page. Consumer Reports is a nonprofit organization, so if you're able to help us keep doing this important work, like talking cars, we always appreciate it. And that will about do it for this episode, which was masterfully orchestrated by super producer Dave Abrams and expertly edited by Andrew I Still Play Hockey Belize, and of course, Anatoly the Great Shumsky. As always, check the show notes for more information on the vehicles and topics we discussed. And just a reminder to please keep your questions coming. Go to talkingcars@icloud.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.